Okay, let us start with the prayers. Om Sada Shiva
सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्
Saraswati Namastubhyam
सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं
Varade
वरदे
Kamarupini
कामरूपिणि
विद्यारम्भं
आरम्भं
करिष्यामि
करिष्यामि
बुद्धिर्भवमे
Sara
भवतु मे सदा
Om Sahana
ॐ सहना
भवतु
भवतु
Sahanu
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै
तस्मै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Vasudevendra
सुरेन्द्रयोगीन्द्रा न वितर्काय तत्त्वबोधो विधीयते
Om Namah Shivaya. Good
ॐ
morning.
नमः शिवाय
Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
All right. Okay. So today let us try to finish the fourth chapter of Tattva Bodha. So we just started looking at the Sanskrit text and we finished 2-3 lines and we finished this one Brahma Pratibhimbam, that reflected consciousness which identifies with Sthula Shariram, is called Jiva, and this Jiva thinks that he is different from Ishvara. And then here we saw about Upadhi, right? So we discussed what is Upadhi and the micro medium, that is the Upadhi at Jiva level, is called as Avidya, and the macro medium, which is the Upadhi at the Ishvara level, is called as Maya. So these things we saw in the last class, and we finished seeing this line also, which is that as long as this Jiva thinks that there is a difference between himself and Ishvara, till then this samsara problem will continue. Only upon not seeing or not accepting a difference between me and Ishvara, this problem can be solved. So the last line says Tasmat Karanat na Jiveshwarayor Bheda Buddhi Svikarya. So therefore, for this reason, to get out of samsara, to overcome this problem of samsara, what should the jiva do? He should not accept Jiveshwara Bheda Buddhi. He should not accept a difference between Jiva and Ishvara. He has to understand that they are non-different. What I call Jiva, me, myself, and what I call Ishvara, which is God or this creation, they are finally not different. And this equation has to be established. So, what we call samsara is the self imposed limitation. So, the nature of bondage is wrong knowledge, wrong understanding, and so the nature of liberation is, of course, correct knowledge or correct understanding. Now, if the problem of samsara is located in me, the locus of the problem is me. So, what is the locus of the solution? Also, me. There is no fixing the world outside. There is nothing to be done externally on the outside, because the problem is never outside. The problem is inside, in my own understanding, in my own intellect, and therefore, where should I fix the problem? In my understanding, in my intellect. So, we have to use the intellect. Intellect plays a very important role in this understanding, in trying to solve this problem of samsara. There is an equation where Jiva is on one side, Ishvara is on the other side. and what happens? We think they are different. So there happens to be an equation here. Jiva is equal to Ishvara, and we have to now prove it. Now, when do you need an equation? When does an equation come? An equation comes only when it is valid, that is, when you put an equal to sign in between, it has to be a valid one, right? If the two sides are actually not equal, can you put the equal to sign? No, then it becomes a wrong equation. So you can only put the equal to sign when it is a valid equation, when it is a valid statement. But at the same time, if you simply write 1 is equal to 1, is that even a necessary equation? It is so obvious, right? 1 is equal to 1. Everyone knows that 1 is equal to 1. Why make an equation out of that? It's not necessary. So an equation becomes necessary when it is not obvious and when it is valid, which is the case of Jiva and Ishvara. So let us understand this with some basic simple maths. Okay, see the equation on the screen. 5 plus 3 is equal to 9 minus 1, right? What is 5 plus 3? 8. What is 9 minus 1? Also 8. So 8 is equal to 8 is a valid equation. It is a correct equation. But at the same time, simply writing 8 is equal to 8 is not necessary. It is just obvious and very redundant. Nobody needs to write that, right? But 5 plus 3 is equal to 9 minus 1 is not so obvious. You have to apply an intellectual filter. When you just look with your eyes, the symbols, the figures on both sides are different. But when you bring your buddhi, your intellect, and you apply that intellectual filter, then what happens? The left side becomes 8, the right side also becomes 8, and the equation is valid, but at the initial glance, the equation is not obvious. So this is the same thing when we do the Jiva is equal to Ishvara equation. So at initial look, it is not obvious how they can be equal. So what we have to do, we have to apply an intellectual filter. And then the equation becomes valid. The equation is always valid, but then you understand how it is valid. Okay? So just like maths, somebody, when you're a child and you're shown this equation, you don't understand, you don't know what to do with this. But what happens? Your maths teacher comes and then they explain to you what is addition, what is subtraction, what is counting, first of all. And then after that, when you see this equation, then it makes sense. In the same way, when you initially look at Jiva and Ishvara, you don't know what to do with it. It doesn't seem to make sense. But once the teacher comes along, explains what is Jiva, what is Ishvara, and how they are equal, then with the help of your own intellect and with the help of the teaching, you are now able to see the aikyam, the oneness, the equality of that equation. Okay. So now today we will be seeing how this equation gets established. So we'll read this now. Nanu sahankarasya
ननु
ननु साहंकारस्य
अहङ्कारस्य
किञ्चिज्ञस्य जीवस्य
किञ्चिदस्य
विज्ञस्य
यस्य
जीवस्य
जीवस्य
निरहङ्कारस्य सर्वज्ञस्य ईश्वरस्य
निरहङ्कारस्य
निरहङ्कारस्य
सर्वज्ञस्य
सर्वज्ञस्य
ईश्वरस्य
ईश्वरस्य
तत्त्वमसीति
तत्त्वमसि
त्वमसीति
महावाक्यात्
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 कथमभेदबुद्धिः स्यादुभयोः
कथमभेदबुद्धिः स्यादुभयोः
कथमभेदबुद्धिस्यादुभयोः
विरुद्धधर्माक्रान्तत्वात्
विरुद्धधर्मग्रन्थत्वात्
धर्माक्रान्तत्वात्
Okay. So the author of Tattva Bodha is now telling, he is himself telling this line, and what he's telling is from the student's point of view. So he has said that in the previous line, if you remember, he said, don't accept a difference between Jiva and Ishvara. That was his previous statement. But now he is himself telling, but I understand that you have a problem when I say that, Nanu, but, which is a sign of protest that the student might have. So he is empathizing with the student and he is telling that I understand your problem. I understand it is not easy to accept Jiva and Ishvara being one and the same, the non-difference of Jiva Ishvara. I understand you have a problem. Why? Why is there a problem? Because sahankarasya kinchignasya jivasya. So this much is a description of Jiva, and the second part is a description of Ishvara. Okay, just one moment. There's some disturbance here. All right. Okay, so there are he's giving some descriptions of Jiva and Ishvara, and he's pointing out the differences actually, which the student might have observed, and the student may have a question that, okay, you're saying Jiva and Ishvara are not different, but I see only differences. And what are those differences? Sahankarasya kinchignasya for the Jiva. Sa ahankara, with the individuality, with the sense of limitation. The jiva is always accompanied with this sense of ahankara, with this sense of individuality or limitation. And the jiva is also kinchignya. Kinchignya means of limited knowledge. The jiva, as an individual, knows only so much, right? You see any person in the world, they have some knowledge. No matter how superior their knowledge is, it is finally limited. And then there is also limited power, limited ability to do things. So the jiva, in every way, it seems jiva is small scale, it seems he is limited. And definitely, when you compare one drop of water to the whole ocean, the scale is totally different, right? And if you look at that from that point of view, you will see only differences. So the jiva has kinchignya, very limited knowledge. But when you look at Ishvara, nirahankara, not bound by that sense of individuality, and sarvagnyasya, Ishvara is all knowing, all powerful. So all those omni words that we use, omnipotent, omniscient, uh, okay, how many more are there? Some two, three, four omni words are there. All of them,
Omnipresent.
yes, omnipresent. All of those words apply when we talk about Ishvara, right? So this Ishvara is all knowing, all powerful, almighty, not bound by the sense of limitation that the jiva has. And so when you look like this at jiva and Ishvara, what happens? They seem to be totally opposite. So that is why viruddha dharma akrantatvat. Viruddha dharma means opposite attributes. Akrantatvat means endowed with. So this Jiva and Ishvara seem to be having totally opposite attributes. They have totally opposite properties, qualities. So how can we say, how can scripture say then that they are non-different? So that's why he is himself saying that katham abheda buddhihi. How is the non-difference possible? Abheda means non-different, buddhi means vision or understanding. So how can I have this understanding of the non-difference between Jiva and Ishvara when they both seem to have viruddha dharma with opposite attributes? And he has given some examples of this opposite attribute, saying Sahankara, Kinchignya, and Nirahankara and Sarvagnya. And so, when the equation, when the Mahavakya, when the Upanishads give their statements like Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi is a Mahavakya from the Upanishad. So here he says, when this Mahavakya says Tattvamasi, you are that. You, the Jiva, are that Ishvara. There's no difference between you and Ishvara. When Upanishad makes a statement like this, Katham Abheda Buddhi, how to understand, how to accept this non difference in the vision? How do I go about seeing this non-difference when Upanishad says Tattvamasi? Because when I look, all I see are the Viruddha Dharma. All I see are the differences. So the teacher understands that the student may have a problem with directly accepting this statement Tattvamasi. Okay, till here it's clear?
Yes, Medhaji.
Okay. So now we'll move on, and now we come to the main crux, the main part where the equation gets resolved. So let us read iti chenna
Kinchena.
sthula sukshma sharirabhimani
स्थूल सूक्ष्म शरीरभिमानी
tvam padavachyarthah
त्वं पदवच्चार्थः
upadhi vinirmuktam
उपाधिविनिर्मुक्तम्
samadhi dasha sampannam
समाधिदशा सम्पन्नम्
शुद्धं चैतन्यं त्वं पदलक्ष्यार्थः
शुद्धं चैतन्यं तदलक्ष्यः
एवं सर्वज्ञत्वादिविशिष्ट ईश्वरः
एवं सर्वज्ञत्वादिविशिष्ट ईश्वरः स्वपादाव्यच्यर्थः
तत्पदवाच्यार्थः
तत्पदवाच्यार्थः
उपाधिशून्यम्
उपाधिशून्यम्
शुद्धचैतन्यं तत्पदलक्ष्यार्थः
शुद्धचैतन्यं तत्पदलक्ष्यार्थः
एवं च जीवेश्वरयोः
एवं ईश्वरयोः
चैतन्यरूपेणाभेदे
चैतन्यरूपेण भेदे
बाधकाभावः
बाधकभावः
So here there are two words that are important that we have to understand the meaning of. The first word is vachyarthaha and the second word is lakshyarthaha. Vachyarthaha and lakshyarthaha. Vachyartha means the direct meaning or the literal meaning of any word, and lakshyartha is the indirect meaning or the implied meaning or the figurative or metaphorical meaning of any word. So, whenever we talk in language, we are continuously using and interchanging Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. We use a combination of these things all the time. Suppose, okay, I tell you, bring me a banana. Would you bring me, how would you bring me the banana?
Bring it to you in your hand.
Whole
Yeah, you
banana
just give it to me with or without a peel, the peel of the banana.
with peel.
With
With
the peel. Now, suppose I say eat the banana. What would you do?
I'll peel it and
Remove the
You will
remove the
peel it
peel.
and then you will eat it, right? Now, I didn't specifically say peel it and eat, or I didn't specifically say bring it to me with the peel still on, right? I just said bring a banana or eat a banana. The word banana is the same, but when doing an action, you have applied an intellectual filter and then you do the next thing, right? If I say bring a banana, you applied your intellect and you have got me the banana with the peel. And if I say eat it, again you have used your intellect and you have eaten without the peel, right? Now, suppose, when I say I am writing, when I say I am writing, which part of me is actually writing?
The hands.
Action by hand.
The hand, which is part of the sthula shariram, that part is actually writing, and of course, backed by the mind and the prana and all that, that part is writing, right? And suppose I say I am uh, let us say I am tall, then which part of me am I referring to?
My body.
The
Body, the sthula
Shariram.
shariram. The sthula shariram. Suppose I say I am sad, then
Mental state.
mind. The
Sukshma.
I'm actually referring to my mind, right?
mind.
The manaha part, the sukshma shariram part. Now, when I say I am sad, do I ever does anyone ever misunderstand it that the body is sad? It is
No,
automatically understood that the mind
mind
is
is
sad,
Sad.
right? And when I say I am tall, nobody ever thinks the mind is tall, right?
yeah.
We connect it only to the body. Now, in language, when we keep talking, we keep using these kind of intellectual filters because the word we say is one thing, but the meaning behind that might be something else entirely, right? So, can you give me some examples of this literal and metaphorical or literal and figurative usage of words? Anybody? Any examples?
I am listening to your lecture.
When we say he's slim, we refer to the body and not to the mind.
Okay, those are based on the same examples I gave. I'm asking anything different. And I'm just saying, take a word that has both a literal meaning, word or a phrase that has a literal meaning, but its implied meaning is something else. So I'll give you one more. So have you heard the phrase, it's raining cats and dogs?
Hmm. Yes.
Yes.
You heard
Yes.
this phrase, it's raining cats and dogs. Now, does it mean that cats and dogs are actually falling from the sky?
No,
No, what does it mean?
It's
raining
raining
very
heavy.
heavily.
It's raining very heavily. That is the implied meaning, right? But the what is the uh, uh, literal meaning? If you take it very literally, it means that there are cats and dogs, which are animals, and they are falling from the sky. That is not the meaning. When somebody says, "Oh, it's raining cats and dogs," you understand that, oh, it's raining very heavily outside, right? So the direct or literal meaning is one thing, but the implied meaning from that sentence is another thing altogether. Any other examples if you have?
Health is wealth.
Yes, health is wealth. Fine, because it is not some physical wealth that you keep in your bank locker, right? Health is just, it means it's a treasure worth protecting. It is something very valuable in your life. But you don't, it is not something that you will just try to take and put it in the locker and safeguard it like that, right? So, whenever we talk, most of the time, in fact, more than 50 to 60% of the time, we are actually talking with lakshyartha, with the implied meaning. And all the time we are doing this intellectual processing, this filtering with our intellect without even realizing, most of the time, because it has become automatic now for us. The construct of language itself is such that you have to keep doing this intellectually understanding and filtering. So, what it means is that when a sentence or a word comes up, we have to see, am I taking vachyartha or am I taking lakshyartha? Another one, in English, sometimes we use the word, especially when in the class itself, when we are talking about different things and we have to generalize, I use the word he. Like, for example, agnani, he does not have desires. Now, when I say he, and if you take it very literally, it means that I'm talking about a male person. So the jnani, he is a person who does this. If I say, you may think that only males are jnanis, but that is not the case. In this context, when I say he, it is it is a representation for all of humanity, including males and females. But in a different context, the word he may refer to only a male. But in certain contexts, the word he is just a generalization for humanity, for all humans, for everyone. Doesn't matter whether male or female. So, the vachyartha of the word he is male, but the lakshyartha can be any human being. Same with the word purusha. Sanskrit word purusha, sometimes it can mean a male person, a man, or sometimes it can mean any human being. Gender doesn't matter there, it is any human being. So, the literal meaning, if you take Purusha, it is a man or a male, but the Lakshyartha is the human being. It represents anybody. So, that is the direct meaning and an implied meaning. And you have to know when to take which meaning. So, this is what we are discussing now. That when it comes to Tattvamasi, the equation Tattvamasi, here also we have to know whether to take Vachyartha or Lakshyartha. Is this clear till now? What is Vachyartha and Lakshyartha?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the author is talking about what is Vachyartha for the word Tvam. So, you remember Tat, Tvam, Asi. Three words are there. Tat means that, Tvam means you, and Asi means is. So, you are that. That is the translation. Now, what is the word Tvam? Tvam is you. So, what is the Vachyartha of the word you, Tvam? If you take Vachyartha, it is Sthula Sukshma Sharirabhimani, the Jiva, basically. If you take Vachyartha, Tvam becomes Jiva. It becomes the one who is identified with the physical and subtle bodies. Yeah, before that, iti chenna, it is just, he's just saying this is not so, with reference to the previous line where he talked about viruddha dharma krantatva, where the opposite attributes are there. He says it is not so. It is not like there are different attributes. That is not what we are talking about here. So, what are we talking about? If you take Vachyartha of Tvam, you have Sthula Sukshma Sharirabhimani. That is the Jiva who is identified with physical body and subtle body. So what should you do? You should take Lakshyartha. What is Lakshyartha of Tvam? The Upadhi Vinirmuktam. Upadhi and Vinirmuktam. Vinirmuktam means free from, free of Upadhi. What is Upadhi for the Jiva?
Anatma.
Which is what?
Sukshma,
Body,
Sari,
mind, and complex.
and complex.
The three bodies. The body, mind, sense complex, the Sthula, Sukshma, and Karana Shariram are the Upadhi for Jiva. So, what he's telling? Free from those Upadhis. That means subtract those Upadhis. Subtract the three bodies. What remains when you subtract the three bodies?
Atma.
Atma. What, in terms of the diagram, what is
The
left?
OC.
Osi.
OC is left. So here, when he says Upadhi Vinirmuktam, he's telling this RM you subtract, remove it, keep it outside. And what remains if you remove RM? OC remains. Just like the mirror and the sun. If you have the sun and you have a mirror, only as long as the mirror is there, you are concerned with the reflection. Let us say I remove the mirror. What remains?
Just the
Only OC.
Only the sun remains. For us, in this case, sun means OC. So Shuddham Chaitanyam, pure consciousness, which is nothing but Brahman, which is nothing but OC. So if you remove Upadhi, if you remove the RMs, then what remains? OC remains. And when does this happen? You cannot physically remove it. And so the author clarifies that Samadhi Dasha Sampannam. Here the word Samadhi means Viveka, at the time of understanding or at the time of, uh, uh, you know, when you have Viveka, when you have the knowledge, at this time, Dasha means time, Sampanna means to gain. So at the time of gaining Viveka and at the time of understanding the teaching, that is Samadhi. At this time, then what remains? Shuddham Chaitanyam remains. Meaning that this Upadhi Vinirmukta, this negating RM, can only be done through your intellect. So when the word Samadhi is used, it means Viveka. Viveka is referring to intellect. And so only with the intellect, this negation can be done. So he's clarifying that there's no actually, you don't have to physically destroy your body or physically damage the body or throw the body in any way. All you have to do is change your understanding so that your body is negated and what remains is OC, the Shuddha Chaitanyam. And this Shuddha Chaitanyam is Lakshyartha of Tvam So the word you of Tattvam becomes Shuddha Chaitanyam. The Lakshyartha of Tvam becomes Shuddha Chaitanyam. And these two are for Tvam. From Tattvam, Tvam we have seen. Now we will see Tat. Okay. What is Tat Pada Vachyartha? What is the literal meaning? The literal meaning is Sarvagnatvadi Vishishta Ishvaraha. Ishvara, who seems to have all these powers like Sarvagnya, being omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. This all powerful Ishvara, the one who seems to know everything or who seems to be in control of everything, seems to have the power to do everything. So this superpower, Ishvara, okay, this Ishvara with the superpowers, with such brilliant powers, glorified powers. So that is what Vishishta means, the special or, wonderful, amazing Ishvara who seems to have all these big attributes that look wow to us. So such an Ishvara, when you're talking about, that is Vachyartha. That is Tat Pada Vachyartha is this Ishvara who seems to have these great powers. And what is Lakshyartha then of this word Ishvara or of this word Tat? Again, what we have to do? Upadhi Shunyam. Shunyam means zero or not there, absence. So, absent of Upadhi, what does Ishvara also become?
Osi.
OC.
OC again, right? If you remove Ishwara's RM also, then what remains is OC. So what do we have? Here also we have OC. Here also we have OC. And so when you look from the point of view of OC, the equation makes sense. That means you have to take the lakshyartha on both sides, the indirect meaning, that is the implied meaning on both the sides. If you take direct meaning, which is the body mind sense complex, or which is the body of Ishvara, which is this whole creation, then when you try to match, it will not make sense. So what should you do? You should drop the bodies, drop the RM, and what remains? Only OC. So from the point of view of RM, the equation will never match. But from the point of view of OC, there is no difference at all. And that is what he says in the last line, Evancha Jiveshwara Yoho. And therefore, between Jiva and Ishwara, Chaitanya Rupena. Chaitanya Rupena means in the form of Atma, in the form of this consciousness, or from the point of view of OC, Abhede. There is no difference. Badhaka Abhava. Badhaka means contradiction. Abhava means not there. So there is no contradiction from the point of view of OC because they are abheda. They are non-different when we look at it from the point of view of OC. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. And with this we have finished the main portion, and so in this way the equation is established. Tat is equal to Tvam. Are we supposed to take Vachyartha or Lakshyartha on both sides?
Laksha.
Lakshya.
What is
Lakshyartha.
Lakshyartha? What is the meaning of the word Lakshyartha?
The implied or indirect meaning.
Indirect meaning. That we
Implied or indirect meaning. And in this case, what does Lakshyartha become for Ishvara and Jiva?
OC.
OC.
So from point of view of OC, they are not different. So the best example to remember is the wave, the ocean, and the water. The wave is one form of water. The ocean is also another form of water. And when you compare wave and ocean, from the point of view of size, they are different. From the point of view of shape, they are different. From the point of view of time they exist, that is also different because wave comes and quickly goes. But ocean is there for much longer time. But if you go on comparing wave with ocean, you will see the differences. So what should you do? You should drop the shape of the wave, drop the shape of the ocean, and what remains is only water on both sides. And they are non-different from the point of view of water. Okay, so water is their very essence. If you ask what is a wave, it is essentially water. If you ask what is ocean, ocean is also essentially water. From point of view of water, there is no difference. But if we get stuck in the shape of wave or shape of ocean, then we will see only the difference. So we have to drop the differences, drop the RM, and how to drop? Intellectually drop, and then we will see that they are actually non-different. And this is the last line for this chapter, and we'll just quickly finish this today. Evancha
Evam cha
Vedanta Vakyaihi
Vedanta
Vedanta Vaikyaihi
Sadgurupadeshena
Sadgurudeshena
Sarveshvapi Bhuteshu
Sarveshvapi Bhuteshu
Yesham Brahma Buddhirutpanna
Yesham Brahma
Brahma Buddhana
Te Jivan इत्यर्थः.
ये जीवान्मुक्ता इत्यर्थः.
Okay. So this is the concluding line for this fourth chapter of Tattva Bodha, which is the topic of Aikyam. And it is also a somewhat introduction to the next chapter, because in this line, what is given is the description of a Jivan Mukta. A definition for Jivan Mukta is given. Who is a Jivan Mukta? A Jivan Mukta is a enlightened person, a liberated person. In Sanskrit, we call Jnani. So, a Jnani is called as Jivan Mukta. And what is the description or definition of this Jivan Mukta? Sarveshwapi Bhuteshu Yesham Brahma Buddhirutpanna. So, the one who has this Brahma Buddhi, or in whom the Brahma Buddhi has arisen. Utpanna means to arise or to come up. So the one in whom this Brahma Buddhi has arisen, has come up. What is Brahma Buddhi? Seeing OC, dropping the differences and seeing OC. And where does he see this? Sarveshu api bhuteshu. In all the beings, everything, in everything that he sees, he has the understanding that all of this is Brahman alone. That is Brahma Buddhi, having the vision of OC, having the vision of non-difference, understanding that all of this is nothing but Brahman alone. And he sees this in all the beings, all the creatures, everything that he sees, the whole world. He understands, including himself, including his own body, mind, sense complex. He understands that all of this is nothing but Brahman, all of this is not very different. So, this person who has this Advaita vision, who has this non dual vision, understanding of this non difference, he is called Jivan Mukta. And this word utpanna, this knowledge has arisen in him. How did it come? How did it arise in him? Here, the author has clarified Vedanta Vakyaihi Sadguru Upadeshena cha. From the words of the scriptures, from the words of the Vedantic scriptures, which is the Upanishads, the Shruti. So, from Shruti Vakya, from Shruti, that is the knowledge from Shruti. And did he read the Shruti, this Jivan Mukta? How did he get the knowledge? The knowledge is available in Shruti, but how did he get? Sadguru Upadeshena, from a teacher, from a qualified teacher, he has got this knowledge. Now, this is a very important part where the author is indicating that a teacher is necessary. Scripture and teacher both are necessary. Okay, so it is not that you can have a teacher who talks independently from personal experience or personal opinions. No, not such a teacher. The teacher has to talk from the scriptures. Why? Because the scripture is the original source of this knowledge. So all that knowledge that comes is from the scripture alone. But does that mean you can go about independently reading scripture? Can you say that anyway the original source is Vedas? Let me go and read Vedas. No. You have to have a teacher who interprets and who gives you the teaching in the way that it is to be consumed by you. Why are both necessary? So first of all, this knowledge cannot have been born from the human intellect. Okay, this is not a knowledge that is a product of the human mind. So it has to be an apaurushaya teaching, a teaching that is beyond the human mind. So that is why we need Veda. Veda is said to be given from Ishvara himself, is said to be, just like how when you buy a washing machine, and with the washing machine, what do you get? An instruction manual comes, right? Any device you buy, in the box, you will have the device, and with it you will have the instruction manual also. In the same way, when the creation was created, the instruction manual was also given in the form of Vedas. Now, having got the instruction manual, and the instruction manual, once you buy the washing machine, can you create an instruction machine for the washing machine? No, it has to come from the manufacturer only, right? When you buy the machine, the manufacturer gives you the instruction manual. You cannot say that I will create an instruction manual after buying the machine. It doesn't work that way, right? So, in the same way, when this creation was created, when the creation came about, the creator himself has encoded or given us the instruction manual for this creation in the form of the Vedas. So, the Veda is the original source of this teaching. But the Vedas are very vast. They can be very confusing. And in fact, they say it is not one lifetime is not enough to navigate the Vedas. Even if you have a very competent teacher, still one lifetime may not be enough. Now imagine if you don't have a teacher at all, how difficult this navigation can become. There are so many tricky parts to navigate. First of all, it is so vast. It is like, you imagine you walk into a very big library. You want to study, say something, you want to say study physics. Okay, and you walk into a big library and you don't even know where to begin, right? Which book to start? Which is the first book you need to pick up to study physics? First, you have to find the physics section. There may be a chemistry section and a biology section. First, you need to find the physics section of the library. Once you go there, there are hundreds of books on physics. Some of them are very advanced, some of them are very basic, some of them you may be already knowing, and some of them are totally beyond your level. How do you find that one book that is the starting point for you? It's very difficult. If you have a librarian to help you, or if you have a teacher who can tell you, take this book from the library and start there, it becomes much easier, right? Otherwise, half your time goes away in just finding the correct book. You just have to keep browsing through different books. Will this work for me? No, keep it aside. Next book. Will this work? No, keep it aside. So, to save you that effort, to save you that time, to save that confusion, it is very helpful if you have a guide who knows already, who has already been through all this, who already knows all this. And if that person can tell you, start here, this is a good starting point for you, then it becomes a much more productive journey. So that is why, because the scriptures are very vast, because they are sometimes tricky, sometimes the word meanings are not that clear. Sometimes, the same word can have multiple meanings, and sometimes the same word can have two meanings, and both the meanings are opposite, totally different. So if you take one meaning, you will end up with one interpretation, and the opposite meaning will end up in an opposite interpretation. So, how do you know? How do you know how to interpret? How do you know you're not going down? And the trouble with this kind of self navigation is that not only can it be confusing or a waste of time and effort, but it can also be dangerous. It can take you in a different line than what you intended to go, and sometimes it can even cause disillusionment or total confusion in a very serious way, in a way that switches off your faith. You might lose your faith altogether, and then so instead of going 2 steps front, now you have gone 5 steps back. So it can become a very tricky and dangerous business, and that is why a teacher is necessary. Scripture is also necessary, teacher is also necessary. And that is what the author is implying here. Vedanta Vakyaihi Sadguru Upadeshena cha. Both are necessary, teacher and scripture. And that is why SPG has a very nice phrase that he uses, that for this study, the Vedantic study, to be a success, you need consistent systematic, long-term study of the scripture from a competent acharya. All the words in that sentence are important. Consistent. Consistent meaning not on and off, but regularly, at regular intervals. Maybe daily, maybe once a week, but whatever. You need to be in touch on a regular basis with the subject. Systematic, meaning it is not like a discourse. You don't start randomly somewhere and you don't end randomly somewhere. This is what happens in many discourses. So there are many temples and many places who offer discourses, and today you go, it is some topic, say karma or something. Tomorrow you go, the topic is totally different, it is something else. Moksha, topic is moksha. Next day you go, topic is something else, it is about Krishna's life story, right? And each day the topic is different. And such a study is also not very helpful. It needs to be systematic, it needs to be continuous, step by step. So you need a consistent study also and a systematic step by step study also. And what is it? And long term. Long term means not 6 months, not 1 year, but several years together of this kind of an effort. And even that might not be enough. Sometimes it might become several lifetimes also, but it doesn't matter. It is a long term study, and you have to mentally prepare yourself and commit yourself to that. And study of what? Not study of physics, not study of anatma, not study of laukika subjects, but study of atma jnanam from the Vedas. So this study, the Vishaya, the topic of study also is important. If you study something else and expect something else, that won't happen, right? And from whom? From a qualified teacher. From a teacher who knows this, who understands this, and who teaches from the scriptures. Not a teacher who teaches personal opinions, but a teacher who sticks to the scriptures and teaches the way they have been taught by their teacher. And that teacher should teach the way they have been taught by their teacher. Okay, this is important. This is how we preserve the parampara, the sampradaya, because at every level, if there's a teacher who says I will add my own thing, by the time it finally reaches down few generations, you will not have the original thing, right? You will have some diluted thing or adulterated thing, and you don't want that. You want the original thing. And so it has to be taught the way they have been taught by their teacher. And so competent, from a qualified or competent teacher. And in this way, when you study and when you consistently put that effort, Brahma Buddhir Utpanna, there arises in you the knowledge of Atmajnanam, of what is Brahman, and the non-difference of this. And so you become a Jivan Mukta. Okay? So with this we will stop, and with this is the conclusion of the fourth chapter, and the next chapter will be the law of karma, and also we will discuss a little bit more about the Jivan Mukta. Okay, any questions? Yes, Deepa Verma ji.
Megha ji, when we buy some machine, the manual come, but with the manual, one guy come to give us a demo, and we keep on practicing that unless or until we'll become perfect in it. It is something like that. And I can see the difference when I attend the classes and when I listen the lecture. They are two different things. The lecture is same, but the impact on me is totally different. When you are there in front of us, I'm talking about again me. It makes a lot of difference. And the same time, same scenario, it gives, I mean, बहुत अच्छा knowledge होती है and things become clear.
Yes, that is why the live classes is important. As it is, this is a compromised version, okay? Doing this online is already a compromised version. So that's why we ask, don't compromise it further by going to the recording. This itself, ideally, if it's possible, we should be doing live classes, that is face-to-face classes. But fine, we have technology and let us use it to the best of our ability. But let us not compromise further by depending on recordings. That's the idea.
And one more thing, Vedaji, you were talking about the path. I believe the paths are different. The journey is different, but altogether the goal is same. सबका goal तो एक ही है ना?
No, the goal is moksha. That part is clear. The paths are the same up till the gates of Jnana. The paths may be different up till the gates of Jnanam. That saying that they say all the paths lead to moksha, no. All the paths lead to the gates of Jnanam. Jnanam alone leads to moksha. So you can say that, oh, people have different journeys, they have different paths and all those things, and all of that is valid till you come to Jnanam only. After this, there is only one goal, one way, one path to moksha. The best example is when you are hungry. What is the solution to hunger?
Eat food.
Eating food is the only solution to hunger, right?
Yes.
Now, there may be hundreds of ways to acquire that food. You can cook, you can order food, you can go outside, you can do any number of things, right? To acquire food. But
Yes.
only eating is the solution to hunger. So all those different things will bring you to the gates of food. But food alone is the solution, the direct and only solution to hunger.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Anything else? Okay. Then we'll stop for the day. And yeah, just to let you all know, there will be no class next weekend on Saturday. I will be traveling. So there's no class next week. Okay. I'll send it on the group as well. All right. Thank you. Let's finish with the prayers.
Thank you, Mehtaji.
Om
Om
Purnamadah
Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om
Om Tat Sat.
Om Tat Sat. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mehtaji.
Mehtaji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mehtaji.
Thank you.
Lovely hearing you.